Hello, everyone. The world's going to hell. Just watched the news, but everything's okay because we're in the study, and I thought I'd do a book haul today. Socks wants to go down. Say hello, Socks. Oh, he's tired. He's going to go down on my chair. I thought I'd do my first book haul. These are all things that I've gathered up in the last few weeks. Last couple of weeks anyway, through going to mostly second-hand shops in Manchester, Stockport, where else? Whitby, I think at one point some of these came from. All around the place. Macclesfield yesterday. I'll just talk through the kinds of things I've been picking up. Some are eBay, and some are even Amazon. I shouldn't say that. New, anyway. This book is something I had as a kid, and I can't remember reading it. I must have, though. I think I did. Mary Mapes Dodge, Hans Brinker, or The Silver Skates. And I found this marvellous, beautiful edition from the 60s. Lovely large print. I had it in paperback, and it was bought in the early 80s one Christmas by my big nana. She would make up stockings for us at Christmas, and she seemed to buy presents from a different kind of shop to everybody else we knew. It seemed to be a shop back in the past somehow. Even the sweets that she bought were these boiled sweets with wrappers that had pictures of flowers and fruit on, and they seemed to belong to a different time as well. And the books that she chose, lots of Enid Blyton, they seemed to come from the 1950s or 60s, as if they'd been in stock that whole time. But she got me a copy of Eric Kästner's Emil and the Detectives, which is a book that I loved then and still love and still remember. But Hans Brinker, or The Silver Skates, which is set in Holland, I don't quite remember. On a bright December morning long ago, two thinly clad children were kneeling upon the bank of a frozen canal in Holland. The sun had not yet appeared, but the grey sky was parted near the horizon, and its edges shone crimson with the coming day. Most of the good Hollanders were enjoying a placid morning nap. Even Mynheer von Stoppelnose, that worthy old Dutchman, was still slumbering in beautiful repose. Now and then, some peasant woman, poising a well-filled basket upon her head, came skimming over the glassy surface of the canal. I think it would have seemed stodgy and old-fashioned, and maybe not exactly my kind of thing when I was that age, but I was probably more into something that began with a flash and a bang and Daleks arriving, maybe. But maybe I did read it, I can't remember. It's one of those things where I won't know. There's a train going by. I won't know until I sit and read it this time. This is Paul Zindel's The Pigman and Me, which is a non-fiction book, I believe. It's a memoir by the author thinking back to his childhood in an Italian community in New York. And it's the background to his 1969 novel, The Pigman and Me. No, The Pigman, I think, was the name of the... Yes, it's there, The Pigman. Which I read for the first time at the beginning of this year, and it knocked my socks off. It's the most amazing teen novel. Apparently one of the first teen novels there were published as such in 1969. It was an incredibly powerful book about loyalty and betrayal, really, written in a way that teenagers just get, and I still get. God, I love that book. Right, new books. People have gone on and on about this. I think Waterstones really pushed it at Christmas. Impossible Creatures, Catherine Rundell. Sounds like exactly my kind of thing. Griffins and monsters and unmapped clusters of islands. I thought I'd give Catherine Rundell another go. People rave about her. I read one book and found it very overwritten, very chewy, very overly ornate in the writing. But because I love monsters, and the quote from Michael Morpurgo is astonishing, really. There was Tolkien, there is Pullman, and now there is Catherine Rundell. Although I never thought Tolkien was all that, apart from The Hobbit, and Pullman, got on my nerves after a bit. This is the second book in a series, a prequel to Legends and Lattes, which I read last year, and it was one of my top books of the year. Travis Baldry. It's a kind of epic fantasy world where a lesbian ogre opens a coffee shop. That was the first book. This is a prequel in which I think she's involved in a bookshop. So it's that cozy fantasy genre, which I feel as if I've been writing in for years and years with my Brenda and Effie books, but suddenly it's all the thing. I was told I was out on my own wanting to read books about coffee shops and guest houses in fantasy worlds. Murder, She Wrote. I love the Murder, She Wrote books. Is it Donald Bain, if I got that right, with Jessica Fletcher? And there's a whole series of those that have gone on for years. I've read them for years. I haven't read one for a while. And I know they've moved on. He's either died or they've got somebody else doing those tie-in books. But this is a kind of teenage version with Jessica's feisty young niece, Beatrice Fletcher, in Cabo Cove. So I'm keen to read this. I love the idea of there being a kind of properly Nancy Drew type Murder, She Wrote. I wish they'd do Murder, She Wrote prequels. Maybe, Jessica during the, God knows when it would be, the 50s, 40s. A young Jessica Fletcher. I should pitch that, shouldn't I? This I picked up in Macclesfield yesterday. It was only republished, I think it's from the 80s. It was republished by Penguin Classics last year. Between Meals, An Appetite for Paris. It's a memoir by A.J. Liebling, a New Yorker writer who writes about food. The quote on the back says, "The primary requisite for writing well about food is a good appetite." So I think it's the memoir of a kind of a happy eater, as it were. I love anything about Paris. I love stuff about food. Just reading this bit reminded me of reading the Julia Child book about living in Paris and learning to cook, which I loved, as I love anything about Julia Child. So this sounds fab. These Penguin Classics, these new ones, are nice, but Penguin, your print is way too small and your paper's a bit cheap. Penguin Classics used to be produced really nicely, it seems to me, and even though they're choosing lovely things, look how, you can't really see, but the paper is kind of crap. Too thin, too cheap. Like, do something about it, Penguin. Third Class Genie, Robert Leeson. Now, I know I read this or watched it on the telly maybe, set in South Manchester, and I remember this from childhood, but now we live here, and, the map, I've been trying to figure out. I don't think it's Levenshulme, but it could be. There's railway lines. There's the arrow pointing to Manchester. There's Irish pubs listed. So it feels a bit like Levy. The idea of a magical realist genie story set here is fantastic. And I'm keen to get to this. My huge reading pile. Yep. And Robert Leeson, of course, was fantastic and well known to me as a kid because he wrote some of the Grange Hill books based on the TV show, and I read that whole series back in 78, 79, 80. I got this, I can't even remember where. Somewhere. Charity shops. Maybe it was Withington on one of our days. Scouring the bookshops, the charity shops of Withington. Quite near here. They've got a lovely cafe there. It's very studenty. People don't really bother with books, but so that means there's lots of things for £1. This is a lovely hardcover copy of Andrew Marr's short book about drawing, very, very lavishly produced. I guess because he's someone off the telly. I'm back on my thing about bloody people on the telly and their books. In his case, I won't make an exception exactly, but he gets something of a free pass because, you know, he can draw and he's got interesting things to say about it. He's clever. And especially in the section that I've just read, where he's talking about the differences between drawing and painting. And it's not about media, and it's not about colour or any of those things that people might ordinarily say. I think he's right that drawings are somehow notational. They leave the viewer to work harder, to look for the bits that aren't there. Paintings are somehow presenting a fuller world. They are an experience in themselves. Drawings are a picture of the idea of a picture. That sounds really pretentious, but they are a kind of map to a picture, I think. And that's all interesting. I love stuff about drawing. I love books about drawing. I love Natalie Goldberg's book about drawing in particular, but lots of other, Hockney's books about drawing and painting I love. Anyway, that's good fun. Matt Cain, The Secret Life of Albert Entwistle. I'm a bit behind with Matt Cain. He's a northern working class gay novelist romance novelist who writes popular novels, which I can get behind. I think for too long, any kind of gay fiction was the province of poshos writing about posh people. There's nothing wrong with that, but it was all that. It was all, that's what Hollinghurst and all that lot did. And it was like that was the only kind of gay fiction you could have. And I wrote about people on council estates and found it hard to fit in. And I'm delighted that these days things have widened out a bit, perhaps. And we do have mainstream commercial fiction that has lead characters who are gay. Not always written by gay people, of course. But Matt Cain is very out there, and his stuff's set in the north, and I've read a couple and enjoyed them. And this year I'm setting out to do my reading challenge that I came up with, to do with reading backwards through time, reading gay fiction, looking for characters who are gay and seeing if I can recognise myself and my life in them. I think because there's been so much talk about own voices and the whole business of representation, which I've got lots of complicated thoughts about. I think I wanted to read some up-to-the-minute gay fiction and non-fiction. So I began with last year, and I'm going back a year at a time, picking out books that I've either missed or haven't got to yet. So recently I read Arthur and Teddy Are Coming Out by Ryan Love, which is very light, very sweet. It was all right. It was good. It was a good first novel. And now I think Matt Cain is possibly next on the list for that particular reading marathon. What else? I should stop soon. This is going on too long. Molly Walton, here's a saga. A Sister's Hope. I'm a fan of Molly Walton and all of her various pseudonyms. She's a writer like me who writes in different genres, sometimes using different voices and different pen names. And I adore that way of working. I love people who can work in different genres. And this is a North Yorkshire set saga. during the Second World War, and I think it's got a kind of mystery aspect to it. I was sent this to read, which is lovely. I love being sent books. It used to happen a lot. I think I've fallen off the publisher's radars in recent years. Don't know why. Anyway, I'm looking forward to that. I love a good saga. This is One Girl in All the World by Kendare Blake. It's the second in a new trilogy in the world of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, I read the first one at the end of last year, and it's published by Hyperion. And I just loved it. I thought the author had got the humour and the wit and the spikiness of the original show so well, and this is properly next generation stuff with all our Buffy heroes now middle-aged and dealing with those problems, but they're very much in the background, and centre stage are these new teens who in the Buffy world. And sorry, I can see dust flying around. It's because I've dislodged this pile of books. Yeah, it was very, very funny, full of high stakes, full of lots of great action sequences, which I know are really hard to do. And Elizabeth Bathory, Countess Dracula herself, being the villain. Right, a couple more. The Girl on the 88 Bus by Freya Sampson, which was a present from a friend of mine, Rosie, who's got fantastic taste in books. We share lots and lots of favourites, and presents for Rosie are usually spot on. Freya Sampson is somebody whose first book or second book I read last year about saving a library. I forget the name of that. I should look it up. It's not here. But I'll do a video soon about my favourite books of last year, and that will be there. Again, very popular, quite light, full of lovely, alive characters. So I'm looking forward to this one, which is the new one, I think. She often has older characters intersecting with much younger ones, and kind of understanding and coming to know each other across the generations in quite mundane settings, which is a whole kind of genre. Love from Paris by Nicolas Barrault, a French novel, I think translated. Yep, I've read 2 books by Barrault. Again, a present from Rosie, and she wasn't to know that I'd read the previous books. I've read The Ingredients of Love, which was a kind of food-themed Parisian book, another one, and The Secret Paris Cinema Club. These are all books that came out in the wake, I think, of the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. That kind of book with an ensemble cast and people running about, a bit of peril, a lot of romance, and a lot of kind of relish for whatever's going on, whether it's cinema or books or food. It's that kind of light romance, comic romance. Millie Johnson, Together Again, which is a couple of years old now. I'm a little behind with Millie. Again, Yorkshire writer, northern writer, lots of very realistic characters. It's the same genre as lots of kind of contemporary women's romance, and she has a kind of a more robust humour, and her books are just funnier than most people's. There's Millie and there's Carol Matthews in this genre that I absolutely love and would read anything by. And I've still got lots to catch up on with both. The one that I read by Millie most recently was at Christmas, and it was from a few years ago, called I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day, about people being snowed up in a guest house in Yorkshire over Christmas, and it was fantastic, with the best gay couple at the heart of it that I think I've read, the most realistic. They bicker and squabble. What can I say? Right, last one I'm going to talk about is The Men Who Stare at Goats, John Ronson, which I want to read. My friend Siobhan passed this on to me because a few weeks ago I read The Psychopath Test, the first book I've read by John Ronson, and it was mind-blowing. I was looking at all my friends and wondering, who's the psychopath? Or thinking about people I used to be friends with and thinking, my God, they were a psychopath. He does say that once you get the the checklist for psychopaths. You start seeing them everywhere. But it's a very, very interesting book about historical definitions of different kinds of madness and mental illness and the stupid things people have done in the past to study this stuff, the outrageous projects and research stuff they've done, the risks that people have taken. Very, very interesting and very witty. So I want to read everything by him as soon as I can. Okay, I shall stop there. I've gone on far too long. This is probably going to be impossible to load up on the WhatsApp. I don't know how long these little vids should be, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll come back for more, and I hope you'll what do they say, press like and leave a comment as well, because it's nice hearing from people watching. Anyway, goodbye from me and Bernard Socks.